Matthew Perry was my favorite of the friends. And the more I learn about his life offset, the struggles that he had, and also the tremendous amount of good that he did, the more I'm amazed by him. I want to talk about loving somebody who wrestles with addiction, including if that person is yourself, using Matthew Perry's legacy as a springboard. Mended light. Y'all may have seen that we've done some Friends reaction videos or Friends Gets Therapized videos on this channel. If you haven't seen those, you're going to want to check those out. And everyone talks about Ross and Rachel, who I found to be very problematic. But then there's Monica and Chandler. And Monica and Chandler, to me, were always the healthiest relationship on that show. And also the most enjoyable, because those are my two favorite Friends actors. And Matthew Perry is, like, for most people, he is my favorite. He's my favorite of the characters. Always calling out everybody else's ridiculousness.
I can't believe you two had sex in her dream.
I'm sorry, it was a one-time thing. I was very drunk and it was someone else's subconscious.
He was the dose of sanity, right? To every other shallow and silly thing that was going on in that show. And I say that as a fan. Incredible comedic talent. You may have seen that he made a statement some time ago about how he wanted to be remembered after he died. And I'm going to read that to you. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. I'm still working through it personally. But the best thing about me is that if an alcoholic or a drug addict comes up to me and says, "Will you help me?" I will always say, "Yes, I know how to do that. I will do that for you, even if I can't always do it for myself." So I do that whenever I can, in groups or one-on-one. And I created the Perry House in Malibu, a sober living facility for men. I also wrote my play, The End of Longing, which is a personal message to the world, an exaggerated form of me as a drunk. I had something important to say to people like me and to people who love people like me. When I die, I know people will talk about friends, friends, friends. And I'm glad of that. Happy I've done some solid work as an actor, as well as given people multiple chances to make fun of my struggles on the World Wide Web. But when I die, as far as my so-called accomplishments go, it would be nice if friends were listed far behind the things I did to try and help other people. I know it won't happen, but it would be nice. Perhaps you've heard me say on this channel that everything we go through, all of our sufferings, all of our difficulties, all of our struggles, they empower us to help other people. If we let them, if we let these things make us more compassionate, more understanding, more tenderhearted to the struggles of other people, and to be willing to be there for them. And Matthew Perry was an incredible example of that. He knew how hellish it is to wrestle with addiction. And his heart ached with sympathy and empathy and compassion for others who were going through it like he was. You know, we talk about where addiction comes from. I'm born in the 80s, raised in the 80s and the 90s. I took the DARE program in elementary school. I watched all these after-school specials about drug addiction and alcohol and Just Say No. And it was always portrayed as you're trying to be cool and fit in, and the cool kids are peer pressuring you to do this thing that you know is wrong. And that's how people get addicted to drugs. So just say no. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm not saying there isn't drug use that happens in an attempt to fit in. But in my experience, working as a counselor, working with people with anxiety and depression, working in tandem and collaboration with substance abuse counselors, because often we'd be on the same team trying to help the same person. And what I see most often is that people know. They know drugs can hurt them. They know alcohol can ruin their life. Why do they get into it? And I mean really get into it. Why do they get into the hard drugs, or why do they get into the hard drinking? Usually pain. They know these things are going to hurt them, and they either just don't care because they stop caring about themselves, or because they want to hurt themselves, or because the risk feels worth it compared to the emotional and psychological pain they're experiencing. A fictional pop culture example of this, I used to watch this show called 24. Kiefer Sutherland played a counter-terrorist agent named Jack Bauer. And in the third season, which low-key is the best season of 24. Jack develops an addiction to heroin. He gets addicted to heroin because he's going undercover with a drug cartel, which is going to lead him to a terrorist cell. But he stays addicted and he can't quit. And there's a drug dealer who says to him, "So Jack, what is it that the needle makes go away?" And I thought, for an action adventure show, that was a pretty profound piece of writing. What is it that the needle makes go away? That when you love somebody who wrestles with addiction, be it drug, be it alcohol, be it compulsive, harmful behaviors of any other sort, it's usually about making something go away. Boredom, meaninglessness, sadness, depression, despair, stress, anxiety, self-loathing, grief, guilt, a million other things. The most important thing when you love somebody who wrestles with substance abuse or any type of addiction is compassion, because the addiction that's the branches. That's what we see. It's not the roots. Marvin Ashton, who was a US senator and an entrepreneur, said something very profound about this. Drugs were on the rise. Drug use was on the rise during his time in office. And this is what he said: "If we advise our youth that drugs are bad, evil, and immoral, yet we do not try to understand why our youth turn to this substitute for reality, then the drugs themselves become the issue and not the symptom of the greater issue of unhappiness." I haven't read Matthew Perry's autobiography yet. I actually plan to. But something that has always struck me about his journey is, one of the world's most famous people, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. One of the world's wealthiest actors. The amount the Friends cast was paid per episode back then was astronomical. And you would think, well, you don't get to have problems because you don't know poverty and you don't know what it is to be desperate and you don't know what it is to be starving. And, it's apples and oranges. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he's a Holocaust survivor and turned therapist. And rather than downplaying the struggles of his clients, saying, "You're not going through anything compared to the Holocaust, let me tell you what suffering is," he said, "Suffering is suffering. Struggles are struggles." And he met them with compassion. And I look at Matthew Perry and I think, here's somebody who his entire life was under the public microscope, who he dated, what he wore, where he went. And he was trying to keep the secret that he was struggling with substance abuse. Can imagine the amount of pressure. He says there are whole seasons of Friends that he doesn't remember filming, either because of substance abuse or because what he could really remember was the stress and the anxiety and the terror of it all. And I do know from interviews that I've seen with him, the self-loathing that he experienced and how much he struggled with that. Imposter syndrome. People think I'm this great persona, that I'm so funny, that I'm so charming, and I'm actually terrified and crippled internally, and I'm pathetic and I'm weak. These are the things that he thought about himself. And he used a lot of his fortune to help people who were struggling with substance abuse. And he spent a lot of his fortune trying to get clean and sober himself. Now, the cause of his death is still to be determined. That's all coming in. But the fact is, what do people like Matthew need? They need understanding. The pressure to change, the pressure to not let the truth come out, the pressure of judgment just adds fuel to the fire that drives them further into the behavior. One thing I know about addiction is that, or any behavior that you're trying to change, is that the more shame is part of that, the less likely you're going to be able to change. Because you feel ashamed and you feel the weight of it and you feel self-loathing and you feel the stress and the sadness. And then you turn to the very behavior that you hate, that hurts you. Why? Because in the moment you like it. Because in the moment it provides a reprieve. It provides a release. We need to make it safe for people to say, this is what I'm struggling with, without judgment, without being seen as less or without being seen as weak. The fact is, we all have different struggles. There's a book that Alicia and I just did a podcast for on our membership site. It's called Good Morning, I Love You. And we covered what we were learning in that book in our podcast. And one of the things it talks about is that change, when it happens more readily with self-compassion than with self-loathing. That you may think that if you ease up on yourself and you don't judge yourself, then you're more likely to just continue in the destructive behavior because you're fine just the way you are. But research has shown just the opposite. That when you take off the pressure of judgment, when you take off the pressure of secrecy, when you take off the pressure of self-loathing, and you can speak the truth and accept yourself and be loved and accepted by others, then you can start to look at the behavior simply as something that doesn't serve and support you and that you want to change. And you believe you can because you believe in yourself, because you're surrounded by people who believe in you and who are cheering for you. And that's something Matthew Perry understood and gave to the people around him in the Malibu home, or when he says, anytime someone comes up to me and says, how do I work with my addiction? And he was there for them. I miss him. It's sad. I'm going to watch reruns of Friends now, and there's going to be some sadness there. But what an incredible legacy of compassion, of support, and of owning publicly, these are my struggles. You know, I think towards the end of Friends, and especially since Friends, he's been very candid about what he's going through. He stopped being afraid of getting caught, of being judged, of being shamed, and said, this is what I'm going through, and I know there's millions of people like me. We're in this together. I should add that if you love somebody who is struggling with addiction of any kind, and their behavior is negatively affecting your mental and emotional health, or is causing you to be unsafe or in an unsafe environment in any way, you're not obligated to stay in that space. You can still love them in other ways. The relationship boundaries can be redrawn. The nature of the relationship can be redrawn. Or in extreme cases, you may need to cut them out of your life, and it's okay to do so. It's not abandoning them if it's keeping yourself safe. You have to find that balance. And then for some people and in some circumstances, the right call is to stay with them, and to stay with them no matter what. And in other cases, the addiction feeds into abusive behavior. And you may feel like, well, yes, I'm being abused, but if I leave, then I'm abandoning them. It's a tough call, and it's a tough balance, and I do not envy that choice. Just know that anytime you take steps to keep yourself safe, you are living in alignment with integrity, and you can still wish the other person well or decide what level of support you give them. If you know somebody, including yourself, who is struggling with addiction, get help, get support. There are meetings and groups in your area who can be there for you. If you need help dealing with trauma, if part of your addiction is because you're coping with the pain of trauma, or self-loathing, or relationship struggles, or mental health struggles, we at Mended can help you. You can meet with a counselor on our team, and if you don't get help with us, get help somewhere. And to all out there who are struggling with addiction, who are struggling with compulsive behavior, who are doing things that you, at the end of the day, really don't want to be doing, but you don't know how to stop, we love you. We see you. We're here for you. Mended Light and its community is a safe space for you to be open and to get help and to get love and encouragement. That said, if the help you need is professional, if you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling like hurting yourself, don't turn to the comments section of YouTube for that. There's a crisis hotline for that. The number's going to be put right here below. What advice do you have for people who are going through this? Have you gone through this? What's helped you? What are your favorite things about Matthew Perry? What are your favorite memories about him, performance-wise, or just his public life and what he shared with all of us? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, folks, keep shining, because we need your light.